Hey everyone, it's Robin again from Man & Machine, and another quick video on 3ds Max 2022. What's new for this year? And this is one of my favorites. This is, I think, a long time coming in Max and something that I really like, which is the presentation mode using one of the floating viewports. So let's just jump in and have a look. Blank scene. I like to start with blank scenes for these just so you can see the whole process. So let's just throw something together here really quickly with regards to a scene. So let's throw down a nice teapot, as we always do. Let's put a box down here so that we've got something else going on for some reflections. Maybe a pyramid at the front here as well. Nothing too fancy, but we've got a few different components in our scene. I'm just going to play around with some of the angles here as well, if my gizmos decide to update. There we go. Let's just play around with some of the angles so they're not quite all straight on, like so. From here, let's just go into a side view. Let's just turn these all around 90 degrees rather than that way around. There we go. Let's just jump into a side view, and I'm just going to make the good old photo studio scene. To be honest, again, it works for most examples, including this one. So let's create our ramp with a line. Let's just put this vertex on here on the side, and then we're going to set up a quick Arnold render, and then we'll show that how we can use the photo studio to be, the presentation mode in this photo studio. So we've got our line. Let's extrude this out one way by about 250. Make sure my numlock is on. There we go. About 250, and then we'll mirror this around the z-axis as a copy. Some base materials will be fine for the purpose of this, so let's just go into Slate Editor and let's just use some physical materials. Again, it doesn't need to be anything special. I'll use 3 different colors for my objects, and then an off black or an off white, sorry, for the floor. So we'll have the floor a matte painted finish. Let's just choose a kind of very light grey here for the floor. Let's assign that to the selection. Let's grab maybe a satin paint. Again, I'm just going to use paint for everything. It just makes everything nice and simple today. A nice deep red for our teapot will look nice. Let's come and grab maybe a metal texture just to give a bit of texture on here. So maybe we'll go with a matte aluminium, and maybe we'll assign that to our box. And then wherever our little pyramid has gone over here, we're going to assign a glossy paint, and then for the color of that we're going to choose maybe a blue, like so. Let's just select our pyramid there and assign that material. Good. So we've got our material set. Now we're just going to have to tweak some of these components, I think, based on that camera angle there. So let's just have this teapot ever so slightly to the side there. Maybe just bring this forward more, like so. And then we're going to create a camera. We're just going to use a target camera slightly off center, staring at those. We're going to lift it up a little bit so its camera height is looking slightly down onto the objects, and then we can just play around with the positioning of that camera to suit. So maybe get a bit closer, come around a little bit, maybe play around with the depth of field so it's zoomed out ever so slightly, something like that. Perfect. So I've got a camera facing my components there. Now, we could just use default scene lighting for the purpose of this if we wanted to. I'm just going to go and jump straight into a high quality scene. So this is default lights, default scene lights, not using any Arnold lights or anything like that. And you can see straight away, putting this in high quality is great. You get a really good instant identification of material. It's not giving us much with regards to the texture here on the metal. We're not using an Arnold material or anything like that at this stage. An Arnold render engine. But obviously by turning that on high quality and continually working in here, it's not necessarily going to give you the results that you're after. So what we can do with this viewport is hit the little plus, and I can say that I want to go ahead and float this viewport as floating viewport 1. And we can create 3 of these if we want to, and they can be different shapes and sizes. I'm just going to put this one here. And in this viewport, I can put into my camera, I can change to high quality, I can change to active shade, dependent on the quality of your system spec. And then as I come in and edit and manipulate and update my scene, that presentation mode, if you like, will update automatically. And whilst I say presentation mode, at the moment it's just a floating viewport. But if I come in there and press Alt and not Alt and Enter, mine's gone blank now. Control Space. There we go. If I press Control Space, sorry, not Alt and Enter, that's full screen. If I press Control Space, it allows me to get that viewport full screen. So it's or borderless, should I say? It's still scaled to the size that it was originally. So as I move my scene around, you notice I'm on the camera here updates. As I move my objects, change my materials, control things, work around with stuff, everything updates as you would expect on that presentation mode. So you can imagine that you're presenting your designs, you're presenting your render, and you might have that full screen on another screen. Because if I control space again, this can easily be dragged into another environment. It can be full screen, control and space, borderless full screen. You can drive in here if you want to, but the idea of this is it's a presentation screen, so generally we'd put it up somewhere and we'd forget about it. If you're powerful enough to be able to throw on an active shade at that point using Arnold, you could do so. I don't have any lights in here. Obviously it's going to keep iterating until it gets the best quality, and then you've basically got a floating active shade window. So not necessarily the best use of that at this time. But generally speaking, if you stick that on high quality and have texture set up, material set up, that's going to give you the exact output that you want. And it's going to give that on maybe a power wall or on a separate presentation screen, so that you can drive on your machine and drive that design through one of those floating viewports. And you can have up to 3 of them, so you can create as many of those floating viewpoints as you want just by hitting the plus. And then say that we want to run a float viewport, and then we've got the 3 different options here. I'm going to regret enabling active shade on that now on my machine, but floating viewport 1, we can have these different shapes and sizes. Come back down, float viewport number 2, float viewport number 3. So you could have 3 presentation walls up. This one might be looking at this from the left. This one might be looking at that from a standard perspective mode, so that we can get really close to some of the objects and have a good look around them. And then this one over here might be looking at our camera, whilst the scene is looking at the 3 from an editing perspective. So floating viewport's great. The ability to control and space in each one of those and make them presentation mode without any GUI, doing exactly what you want them to do. Nice functionality. I like it a lot. Hope that's been useful, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks very much.